Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bharava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Gopi Jana Bharava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodhanandana Raja Janaranjana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yasodhanandana Raja Janaranjana Jaya Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tiravachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bharava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Gopi Jana Bharava Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Prahladananda Jaya Prahladananda Yasodanandana Prahladananda Jaya Prahladananda Yamuna Tiravachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tiravachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhangsa Brahmadakacharya Asidhara Situ Shri Shriman His Divine Grace Shalasi Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Raj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribol Slava Zarani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Gurangi Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthapute Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskadyade Sadharane Om Agana Tivarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakans Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanshena Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patiranam Vavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 4, The Atrocities of King Kamsa, Text number 6. And there's no translation, so there's no purport, so we'll just read the translation. My Lord, my brother, I am very poor, being bereft of my children, but still I am your younger sister, and therefore it would be worthy of you to give me this last child as a gift. Text 7. Shri Shukuvacha Upaguyatmajam evam Rudatya dina dinava Yachitas tam vinira bhartya Hastad achi chitai kalaha Shri Shukuvacha Upaguyatmajam evam Rudatya dina dinava Yachitas tam vinira bhartya Hastad achi chite kalaha Shri Shukuvacha Devam Yatadina Dinavat Asatatan Jadaya Yadachite Kalaha. Ladies. Shri Gurgavacha Shri Yam Evam Rudatya dina dinavat Yachitas tamanirvasya Hastad achichite kalaha. Shri Shukuvacha Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Upaguya, embracing Atmajam, her daughter, Evam, in this way, Rudatya, by Devaki, who was crying, Dina Dinavad, very piteously, like a poor woman, Yachitaha, being begged, Tam, her Devaki, Vinira Bharatasya, chastising, Hastat, from her hands, Achichide, separated the child by force, Kalaha, Kangsa, the most cruel. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shukadeva Goswami continued, piteously embracing her daughter and crying. Devaki begged Kangsa for the child, but he was so cruel that he chastised her and forcibly snatched the child from her hands. Report. Although Devaki was crying like a very poor woman, actually, she was not poor. And therefore the word used here is Dinavat. She had already given birth to Krishna. Therefore, who could have been richer than she? Even the demigods had come to offer prayers to Devaki, but she played the part of a poor, piteously afflicted woman because she wanted to save the daughter of Yashoda. Text 8. Having uprooted all relationships with his sister because of intense selfishness, Kamsa, who was sitting on his knees, grasped the newborn child by the legs and tried to dash her against the surface of a stone. The child Yogamaya Devi, the younger sister of Lord Vishnu, slipped from Kamsa's hands and appeared in the sky as Devi, the goddess Durga, with 8 arms, completely equipped with weapons. Purport. Kamsa tried to dash the child downward against a piece of stone, but since she was Yogamaya, the younger sister of Lord Vishnu, she slipped upward and assumed the form of goddess Durga. The word Anuja, meaning the younger sister, is significant. When Vishnu or Krishna took birth from Devaki, he must have simultaneously taken birth from Jasoda also. Otherwise, how could Yogamaya have been Anuja, the Lord's younger sister? Translation. The goddess Durga was decorated with flower garlands, smeared with sandalwood pulp, and dressed with excellent garments and ornaments made of valuable jewels, holding in her hands a bow, a trident, arrows, a shield, a sword, a conch shell, a disc, and a club. Being praised by celestial beings like Apsaras, Kinnaras, Uragas, Siddhas, Charnas, and Gandharvas, who worshipped her with all kinds of presentations, she spoke as follows. "O Kamsa, you fool! What will be the use of killing me? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has been your enemy from the very beginning, and who will certainly kill you, has already taken his birth somewhere else. Therefore, do not unnecessarily kill other children." Translation. After speaking to Kamsa in this way, the goddess Durga Yogamaya appeared in different places, such as Varanasi, and became celebrated by different names such as Annapurna, Durga, Kali, and Bhadra. Purport. The goddess Durga is celebrated in Calcutta as Kali, in Bombay as Mumba Devi, in Varanasi as Annapurna, in Calcutta as Bhadra Kali, and in Ahmedabad as Bhadra. Thus, in different places, she is known by different names. The devotees are known as, her devotees are known as Shaktas, or worshippers of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas worshippers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself are called Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are destined to return home, back to Godhead, in the spiritual world, whereas the Shaktas are destined to live in this material world to enjoy different types of material happiness. In the material world, the living entity must accept different types of bodies. Brahmanyan sarvabhutani yantra rudani maya. Bhagavad Gita 1861. According to the living entity's desire, Yogamaya or Maya, the goddess Durga, gives him a particular type of body, which is mentioned as yantra, a machine. But the living entities who are promoted to the spiritual world do not return to the prison house of a material body. Tyaktva deham panarjanma naiti mam eti sorjana. The word janma, naiti, indicate that these living entities remain in their original spiritual bodies to enjoy the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental abode Vaikuntha and Vrindavan. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Tadamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharane nirvishesha shunyavadi paskyadyade satarne. We learn here that in one verse that Krishna is Krishna's sister, Yogamaya, Anuja, and Krishna himself took birth simultaneously, or one after another, from Jasodamayi. Now, it appears that in terms of rasa, or relationship, that this is not emphasized very much in the past times. Although Mother Jasoda and Nanda Maharaj, in their relationship to Krishna, treated him exactly as their small child, or their child, eternally. But still there was some conception in the back of the mind, at least some, including Devaki, that actually Krishna was that little boy, who had turned himself from Vishnu, from Narayan, into a little boy. So Devaki was thinking like that actually Krishna is not actually Krishna, he's Narayan, who's converted himself into Krishna. But Mother Jasoda never thought like that. She didn't know that Narayan had converted himself into Krishna and was transported apparently from Mathura to Vrindavan. But actually, Krishna had taken birth from Mother Jasoda. And he never leaves Vrindavan, therefore he always stays in Vrindavan. And even when he was apparently being transported from Vrindavan to Mathura, actually he never left Vrindavan. He was still there. But he was there in a form that only his devotees were conscious of. And at the same time, his other form as Vasudeva Krishna really never left Mathura, because when Krishna came, that Vasudeva Krishna stayed in Vrindavan, and the Vasudeva portion of Krishna, who was in Krishna and also in the Jamuna, he got out of the lake and got onto the chariot with Akura and Balaram, who is Nantashesha. As Akura saw in the river Jamuna, when he went to bathe, he saw Nantashesha, and he saw Narayan on top of Nantashesha in the Jamuna, and all the demigods offering prayers, and he was quite amazed. So he looked at the chariot, and he saw that Krishna was still there. And he went back into the water, and then he saw that Krishna and Balaram were in the water first, and then he came back and he saw Lord Narayan in the water. In any case, Lord Narayan was the one who Krura brought back to Mathura in the form of Vasudeva Krishna. And Krishna in the form of Krishna's, the son of Mother Jasoda, remained in Vrindavan in his bhava form. He just became unmanifested so that there was no possibility of Kamsa attacking Krishna because he couldn't even see Krishna. In other words, if he came to Vrindavan, Kamsa, I guess Vasudeva would have come back, but if Vasudeva was already in Mathura, then it would have been a little hard for Krishna because Krishna doesn't kill anyone. He only plays on his flute. He's all loving. He doesn't have any pastimes where he kills anyone. He needs his expansions to kill these demons. But his expansion, at least Vasudeva Krishna was in Mathura, and therefore Krishna was invisible. Until finally, after Krishna killed all those demons, then he came back to Vrindavan. So Krishna really didn't want to leave Vrindavan. At least he didn't want to leave his manifested pastimes in Vrindavan, but he had to until all the demons were killed. Because otherwise, that's the way things are arranged. Another thing here explains is that Durga, there are two types of people. One of them, the worshippers of Durga, and the other ones are worshippers of Krishna. We have a choice. Durga is manifested to us in the form of this body. This body is actually a manifestation of Durga's energy, and it's controlled by Durga. Durga controls the three modes of material nature under Krishna's direction. Maya dakshena prakriti siyate sucharacharam hetuna nena kondiya jagatvi parivartate. This energy of mine, material energy, is working under my direction, producing all moving and non-moving beings, and by its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So Durga works under Krishna, Daivi Prakritim Ashritya, or as it says, Daivi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Dharatya Mam Eva Ye Prapadyante Mayam Etam Taramti Chai. This divine energy of mind, consisting of three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have taken shelter of me can easily cross beyond it. In other words, as soon as we are ourselves as aspiring devotees, as soon as we lose contact with Krishna, then we become under the modes of material nature that we were conditioned by, especially at birth. In other words, we took birth in the material world in this body, and whatever conception of the body we have, the body is actually, according to the Bhagavad Gita at least, simply composed of the three modes of nature. Now exactly what that means is a little abstract for most of us. Where Krishna says, Sattvam Rajas Tamayiti Guna Prakriti Sambhava Ivananti Mahabaho Dehe Dehinam Avyam. The material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. When the living entity comes in contact with these modes, he becomes conditioned by them. So what does it mean to us practically? That when we forget Krishna, then we are in three general states. Of course, there's endless varieties of these states. But the lowest state, called ignorance, we become very sleepy, we lose our attention, we become lethargic, we lose our enthusiasm. Has anyone felt very enthusiastic right before they go to sleep? Or when you're tired, do you really feel enthusiastic? No, we lose our enthusiasm. The pillow looks more beautiful than the deities. Even we have a girlfriend or boyfriend, suddenly when we're in that mode of material nature, we want to embrace the pillow rather than anyone else. And in the mode of passion, we're busily working hard so we can become happy in the future. The very energy of looking forward to becoming happy impels us to work incessantly, hoping that this time is going to be something different from all the other times. This time we're actually going to build something, or make something, or do something that's going to give us unlimited happiness. I wasn't happy when I did 2 backflips, but when I do 3, I'm going to be in ecstasy. Or in the yoga system, the way people practice now, 20 years I'm trying to put my toe behind my ear. And when I finally can do it, then I'll be in heaven. And then after you do that enough times for enough years, then one day your tendons split and you're in hell. On the way to heaven, you wound up in hell. Took the wrong turn. So that's the mode of passion. Working hard to become happy, suffering like anything to become happy, and then finally you get what you wanted and you're unhappy. You're in the mode of ignorance now, disappointed. And then there's a mode of goodness, dutiful activity without attachment to the result, and simply trying to become detached from suffering and enjoyment by doing one's activities without attachment. So that state one is actually not suffering anymore, or suffering less, and one actually feels a sense of happiness, the alleviation of distress. So that's the material world. That's what we're working so hard for. So it says here, we can't win and we can't break even. The best we can hope for is the absence of misery, which that's the highest happiness in the material world. Of course, we find in the heavenly planets people seem to be enjoying, but what they're enjoying is glorifying Krishna in the mode of goodness. Although they may be attached to being demigods, still they understand their position as servants of Krishna, and therefore in Brahmaloka, for instance, the Gandharvas, when Kukumi, or actually, what was his name? Revati and her father, I forget his father's name, anyhow, Kukumi. When they went to Brahmaloka, Brahmaloka was listening to the Gandharvas singing. They had a musical concert. And it was so ecstatic, the concert, that time went so quickly that yugas and yugas went by on our planet. That's how nice it is. When things are going well, time goes quite quickly. And when things are going poorly, then time seems to slow up. So if you want to feel like you're living longer, just make a lot of appointments with the dentist. Then your feeling of being alive will stretch out as you're being tortured. You'll feel one moment to be like 12 years or more when the drill hits the tooth. So after some time, Kukumi asked that Revati be married, good husband, and Lord Brahma laughed. He said that you've been here for only a few moments of my time, but in your time it's been many, many yugas. So, in the material world, time is relative, and in the three modes of material nature, everyone has to suffer to more or less different degrees, but on the spiritual world, where there's no suffering, there's also no time, material time. There's spiritual time, but it doesn't impede one's activities. It's actually when Radha and Krishna and their associates want to spend more time in a particular pastime, then they allow time to go on, stretch it out for some time. In other words, there's no limitation. It's not that Krishna gets up in the morning, the alarm clock rings, and he has to go out and herd the cows. If he wants to, he can spend another 100 billion years in bed, and no one would even notice, because time is different. So here we have a body which is made out of the three modes of material nature, and it's worshipable for us. We love our body. Can you think of anything we love more than our body? Even everyone else thinks the aroma emanating from our body is disgusting. We think it's like nectar. It's like sandalwood paste and aguru. Because we love everything about this body, because that's our nature. We're worshipers. We're devotees by nature. So now we're devoted to our body, and we love every aspect of it. There's nothing more sweet to us than hearing the sound of our name. We can be chanting Hare Krishna, falling asleep, and if someone tells our name, immediately we wake up. Where did that sound come from? Who's talking about me? Therefore, if we want to become devotees of Krishna, it's just a question of changing our attention. Because now we're paying so much attention to our body. So that's all right. This body is very useful for our spiritual advancement. We have to take care of it very nicely. But at the same time, we have to develop a sense of Krishna consciousness, which will really not take away from taking care of the body in most cases, but will actually add to it. In other words, the more we become conscious of Krishna, the more we become conscious, and therefore we know more subtly even how to take care of the body better. It is said that Kardama Muni, it wasn't Kandarma, it was Kandarma Muni was meditating for 10,000 years when he was meditating on the super soul. But it said he stayed young and healthy because of the energy, the spiritual energy actually kept his body young and healthy for 10,000 years. So if we come under the spiritual energy, we'll actually become healthier. Well, actually, in every respect, our lives will become more auspicious. It doesn't mean we'll live forever in the body, because that wouldn't be a good idea. For one who's completely absorbed in the spiritual energy, he doesn't really care if he's in the body or outside the body. But every body, even Lord Brahma's body, has to change after some time. Therefore, if we have a choice, either worshiping Durga, of course, why do people worship Durga or Kali? Is in order to it's a service not to Durga or Kali, it's a service to their material body, to get something for it. Of course, higher than our gross material body is our subtle body. That's why it's so hard to chant Hare Krishna. Because our emotional body is what we're most attached to. And we have this idea that whatever mood I'm in, that's something very important. we may be depressed, but we take shelter of the depression. We may be angry, but we take shelter of the anger, or whatever else mood we're in, because the subtle body is more powerful than the gross body. The gross body is actually a manifestation of the subtle body. And our intelligence, when we're in Maya, when the illusory energy, it becomes a servant of the illusory material consciousness. And therefore we accept, usually most people without much knowledge, they accept their emotional state. If they break a leg, it's like today I was sitting in half lotus, I think I almost broke my leg. If we break our leg, we try and do something about it. We actually become concerned. But when our minds are distressed, we have no idea what to do, because our mind drags our intelligence down, and therefore we become susceptible to actually take shelter of our distressed condition until we get some good association, or we get tired of being distressed and we look for some solution. And then most people go to a psychiatrist who gives them a pill that makes them, they're no longer distressed because they're depressed. They don't even know where they are after some time. So there's nothing to be distressed over, because they can't remember who they are anymore, or why they could possibly be in distress. Therefore, it's very hard, because we're very much attached to our gross, subtle body, our mind, and even more difficult is our conception of life. We actually think we know much more than we actually know. Just like the devotees, they keep on hearing philosophy all the time, especially my classes. So much philosophy. And then after some time, they think they know so much. They know, and then they want to know more and more details. What was Krishna doing exactly with Radharani in the bushes of Vrindavan? We want to know every detail. And we think that's knowledge, but actually we don't know anything. Because we're still in the bodily concept of life, so how can we actually know the reality? Why don't we know reality? Because we take theoretical knowledge as knowledge, which is a kind of knowledge, but it's not the highest knowledge. That knowledge is actually manifested when we're no longer attached to not only our gross body, just like devotees often in the beginning, I'm not this body, and they treat the body as just like a sack of potatoes. A lot of times we used to see, not so much anymore, devotees would go out with barefoot feet, even in the winter, to prove that they're not their body, to show the world that they're detached. Sometimes they'd starve themselves to death almost. Sometimes they eat themselves to death. Usually the latter. Because we're not this body, Prabhu. And then when they get old, then they become a body again. They spend, as it says, most people spend their youth trying to get wealth, and they spend their old age, or we should say, they spend their youth trying to get wealth, and in the old age they spend their wealth trying to get health. So they sacrifice their health for wealth in their youth, and in old age they sacrifice their wealth to get health. Therefore, to get detached from the subtle body is quite difficult, because we're attached to it. That's the main attachment, is to the subtle body. Therefore, to actually be there's a difference between happiness and joy. Happiness depends upon external factors, and joy is internal. That even in difficulty, that one is still happy. And that's the highest state of happiness, really, of joy. That when we're in difficulty, still we're joyful. That our happiness doesn't depend, or our joyfulness doesn't depend upon the circumstances. And that's really detachment from the mind, the subtle mind, which is usually in the ignorance or passion, or even goodness. And the joyfulness is by being in consciousness of Krishna. Or even detaching ourselves from our material circumstances, and not becoming overwhelmed by them, and just being joyful anyhow, in the mode of goodness, and therefore naturally there's room for Krishna to appear and to have a reason to be joyful, to experience. And above the intelligence and the mind is the false ego. So that's the most difficult. He's telling me I'm not this body because he doesn't have such a nice body like I have. He's insulting me. I like my body. Besides that, my emotional life is most of my life. He's trying to take it away from me. I'm supposed to be happy all the time. Just have a big grin on my face and act like everything's all right. So our false ego is the most difficult thing to get rid of, because that's what we have most attachment for. We've worked so hard since time immemorial to get this present body, and therefore the very thought that there's anything higher than my material existence right now is repugnant to our false ego. And therefore all the other instructions seem superficial, because all the instructions in Krishna consciousness, they threaten my false ego. I'm supposed to be happy when my body is in distress. That's ridiculous. I have to become completely absorbed in my body when it's distressed, and cry, lament, complain, get other people to try and solve my problems, or if they can't solve my problems, then I have to put them in the same problem that I have, so that I feel like I'm not alone in my problems. So at least my loneliness goes away. We suffer together. That makes me feel better. My false ego gets relieved. I thought I was suffering the most, but now I've put other people into suffering, and they're suffering even more than I am, so I feel good, because I'm not suffering the most anymore. So relative to them, I'm happy. In any case, one has to make a choice. Either we get out of the false ego, we get out of the attachment to the material conceptions that we have, our emotional states, and our concern over our gross and physical body, and we try to become Krishna conscious. So we become a worshiper of Krishna. Better to start with bhakti-yoga, better to start trying to change our attitude towards make it devotional. Do whatever we're doing devotionally for Krishna, and that will take care of everything else. And if we can't do that, at least follow the regular principles, so that gradually we can go from the gross platform to the more subtle platforms. Gradually Krishna will give us intelligence, buddhi, so we can gradually give up our false ego and not be so much overwhelmed by it, thinking ourselves in competition with every other living entity in the creation. And that's called envy. Anyone who does better than me, I hate them. Anyone who does worse than me, they're threatening to become better than me or equal to me. So I also hate them. So in the material world there's no love at all. But that's what we're hankering for. But in the spiritual world there's nothing but love. Because there's no more material competition. There's only appreciation. Everyone appreciates. Even Krishna appreciates. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes. He's one of us.
Thank you for inspiring lecture. I would just like to ask, in a moments when we are very engrossed in our minds, like when the mind is completely like leading us, what can we do in order to get out from this?
Meditate on the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and get into the attitude that I have to serve him, serve his instructions. Then Krishna will give us intelligence how to serve his instructions. And that means that we'll become Krishna conscious. And then there will be no more distress. We'll even forget about why I was distressed. So fix our minds upon the instructions given by our acharyas, especially coming from Prabhupada, in service, and then Krishna will help us, Tadami Buddhi Yogantam, how to engage in external and internal service to Krishna, and then we'll be blissful. So we have a choice. When we're distressed, it means we're distressed over our material service. And everyone's distressed over the material service, because even Brahma is in anxiety because he has to die. But if we're in spiritual service, then there's no more distress. And the more distressed one is, and the more one tries to take shelter of Krishna, then the more one makes spiritual advancement. That's why going on Bhakti distribution is so auspicious. Because it's generally when we first go out, we're in distress. We don't know what's going to happen. And then we start distributing books, and Krishna starts sending people, and people buying it, and we start feeling ourselves we're empowered. We're actually in control. Something's in control that's changing people, getting them to obey us, to notice us. Then we're blissful because they're buying books, and Krishna is pleased, and we're pleased, and they're pleased, and everything's pleased. Then we forget why I was in distress in the first place. Because I thought, well, here I am again, out on the street. I don't see Krishna anywhere. These people don't look very friendly. I don't know if it's going to work. And then you try it out, and if it works, then we're like, well, Krishna is still here. He was here yesterday, and he's still here today. And maybe there's a chance he might even be in the temple also. Who knows? He's out here. Why? Well, maybe he's in the temple too. Any other questions? Yes. Microphone.
I liked when you say...
you have to eat the microphone.
Like the philosophy that we know, the theory part, but it manifests when we really realize that we are actually not this body, because we all the time hear this, that we are not this body but a spirit soul. But there is a difference when we all the time hear it, but then when we hear it and then the application, we apply those instructions in our life, and then we actually realize it at one point, okay, we are not this body really. And then this theory, that's when it manifests when we realize we are not this body.
Yes, when Krishna reveals it to us. Then we, oh, that's what it means. Otherwise it's theory. It's like building a rocket ship on paper. It won't take you very far. But you need the planning in order to build the rocket ship, so eventually you can get into it and it goes somewhere. So the planning is necessary, but the theory is necessary. But we have to apply it, otherwise it doesn't really have any real meaning to us, experience. Okay, Kuala Grantaraj Srimad-bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.